A few days ago, President Donald Trump made a statement to the effect that South Africa would not be invited to participate in the G20 in the United States. He repeated untrue statements about genocide against Afrikaners and the confiscation of land from white people in our country. We must make it clear that South Africa is one of the founding members of the G20, and South Africa is therefore a member of the G20 in its own name and right. We will continue to participate as a full, active, and constructive member of the G20.
This isn't the first time the U.S. has responded harshly to defiance. Just ask Venezuela. Under President Maduro, Venezuela aligned itself with Russia and China and was met with crippling sanctions, political isolation, and open threats. Now, analysts fear that South Africa is walking a similar path. Ramaphosa's warm relations with BRICS partners, his challenge to U.S. foreign policy, and his refusal to back down are making many in Washington nervous. And Nigeria, under President Tinubu, may not be far behind. With rising diplomatic and military cooperation with China and a growing role in African unity efforts, Nigeria too is being viewed as problematic by the West.
Earlier this week, we formally handed over the G20 presidency for 2026 to the United States, observing the appropriate diplomatic protocols. Despite the challenges and misunderstandings that have arisen between South Africa and the United States, South Africa remains a firm and an unwavering friend of the American people. We recall the great solidarity movement in the United States that stood by our side in our struggle for democracy and freedom. We recall how the Bill of Rights in the United States Constitution inspired us as we wrote our own Constitution. We offer the people of the United States nothing but goodwill and friendship. We affirm our commitment to continue to engage in dialogue with the United States government and to do so with respect and with dignity as equal sovereign countries. We value the United States government and its people as a partner. We have common interests, common values, and a shared wish to advance the prosperity and well-being of the people of both of our countries. As a country, we are aware that the stance taken by the United States administration has been influenced by a sustained campaign of disinformation by groups and individuals within our country, in the United States, and elsewhere. These people who are spreading disinformation are endangering and undermining South Africa's national interests, destroying South African jobs, and weakening our country's relations with one of our most important partners. We must remind these people that South Africa is a constitutional democracy with a Bill of Rights that guarantees equality under the law. We have an independent judiciary able to uphold our Constitution and defend the rights of all South Africans. We are a country that has a tradition of dialogue, that has an enduring ability to come together to confront the challenges that we face. South African problems must be solved by South Africans themselves. We have now embarked upon a national dialogue where all South Africans from all walks of life, of all races and creeds, are invited to forge a new future for our country. We have determined, in the tradition of Nelson Mandela and other great leaders that have helped to build our nation, that no one must be excluded. Every voice and every perspective must be heard. And as we invite people to participate, we also invite those who are spreading misinformation about our country to bring their concerns and their solutions to the national dialogue. We must never allow others to try to redefine our country and cause divisions amongst us or dictate who we are as a nation. We know who we are. We are South Africans. We are defined by our ability to work together and to find solutions to problems that beset our country. We live together, work together, learn together, laugh together, even play together. We also pray together as we did today during the National Day of Prayer. We also mourn together. We celebrate together and face our challenges together. In the best and worst of times, we have stood together. We must work with greater focus and determination to address the many challenges our country is facing and make our South Africa a peaceful, prosperous, and great nation. And as our sportsmen and women have taught us, we are stronger together, always. Lastly, thank you once again for coming together as South Africans to host a very successful G20. You made us proud. Nkosi sikelela iAfrika, Morena ubuluke sitjhaba sa heso. God CN South Africa. God bless South Africa. Mudzimu batutshedze Africa chip.
In the halls of global power, a new chapter is being written, and Africa is at the center of it. After a bold G20 speech from South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, the geopolitical spotlight has turned toward the continent once again. But this time, it's not about aid or charity. It's about power, sovereignty, and fear. This is the story of how Africa's rising voice is shaking the foundations of the West, and why Donald Trump, Washington elites, and global media are suddenly watching South Africa and Nigeria with growing concern. At the 2025 G20 summit, held without Donald Trump in attendance, President Ramaphosa took the stage with strength and clarity. He spoke of Africa's right to define its own future, its growing ties with emerging powers like China and Russia, and its refusal to be bullied into silence. Ramaphosa called out economic double standards. He criticized global inequality. And most powerfully, he reminded the world that Africa is not a child in need of guidance, but a continent of sovereign nations demanding respect. Trump may not have been in the room, but his absence only made the speech louder. It echoed in Washington, where political analysts began to ring alarm bells. Is South Africa turning against us? This isn't the first time the U.S. has responded harshly to defiance. Just ask Venezuela. Under President Maduro, Venezuela aligned itself with Russia and China and was met with crippling sanctions, political isolation, and open threats. Now, analysts fear that South Africa is walking a similar path. Ramaphosa's warm relations with BRICS partners, his challenge to U.S. foreign policy, and his refusal to back down are making many in Washington nervous. And Nigeria under President Tinubu may not be far behind. With rising diplomatic and military cooperation with China and a growing role in African unity efforts, Nigeria too is being viewed as problematic by the West. It didn't take long for old narratives to resurface. U.S. political commentators began accusing South Africa of persecuting white farmers, a charge that has been widely disputed and often used to stoke division. Nigeria, too, faced accusations, this time about violence against Christians. While both countries deal with complex internal challenges, the sudden amplification of these issues by U.S. politicians is no coincidence. And then came the real turning point. South Africa's decision to take Israel to the International Court of Justice over alleged human rights violations in Gaza. That single act infuriated American allies and was seen as a direct challenge to U.S. foreign policy. Not long after, the United States made a quiet but telling move. South Africa was removed from the invitation list for G20 Miami 2026. The message was clear. If you stand against our allies, you're no longer welcome at the table. The retaliation didn't stop there. Trade tensions began to rise. South Africa suspended imports of U.S. chicken, a move rooted in national policy, but painted in U.S. media as anti-American. Behind closed doors, American policymakers began to question, should South Africa face economic consequences? Should Nigeria be sanctioned? And is Pan-African solidarity now a national security concern for the West? But here's the truth. This isn't about any one speech or one country. This is about a continent that is rising, not with anger, but with confidence. Africa is no longer begging for a seat at the table. It is building its own table. Pan-Africanism, once a dream of Nkrumah, Mandela, and Lumumba, is becoming a living movement. Nations are trading more with each other. Young leaders are rejecting neo-colonial control. And the world is waking up to Africa's power. From economic policy to cultural pride, from food independence to digital innovation, Africa is asserting itself, not in opposition to the world, but in defense of its own future. The question now is simple. Will Africa remain divided and vulnerable to foreign pressure? Or will it unite politically, economically, and spiritually to shape its destiny? The United States and other Western powers may try to punish those who step out of line, but every sanction, every snub, and every accusation only fuels a deeper fire, a fire for freedom, for dignity, for greatness. South Africa, Nigeria, and every African nation has a choice: bow to fear or rise with pride. Africa is not the enemy. Africa is the future, and the world is watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe Africa should speak for itself. And stand tall, no matter who tries to silence it. This is Make Africa Great, and the best is yet to come. South Africa, Nigeria, and the world.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa.